The alarm clock blinked 3:33 a.m., each digit pulsed red like an open wound, casting a faint glow across the darkened bedroom. Michael awoke with a jolt. His sheets tangled around his legs, heart hammering with a sense of inexplicable dread. The air was thick and sour, filled with the metallic tang of copper, and something else, wet earth, maybe, or rotting leaves. Then he heard it, the unmistakable creak of the front door slowly opening. Not the screen door, it was the heavy oak one, the one that only groaned like that when it was cold and swollen with rain. He froze, listened. There were no footsteps, just that yawning creak followed by silence, and then a soft tap, 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 as if bare feet were stepping cautiously into the foyer. He slid from the bed, every floorboard underfoot colder than the last, the hardwood chilled like stone in a crypt. When he turned the corner, he saw her, Ava, standing in the doorway, soaking wet, her nightgown clinging to her skin like a shroud, hair stringy and matted to her face. Her skin was pale to pale and glistened like wax under the hallway bulb. Her eyes were wide open, but vacant, fixed, unblinking. "Ava?" he whispered. No response. He stepped closer, but something in him recoiled before he could reach her. A bitter taste filled his mouth like bile and iron. The house behind her moaned. The lights flickered once, then silence again. She tilted, her head slightly, as though trying to recognize him or remember him. He wanted to grab her, to hug her, to scream, but instead, he stared at her feet. She was leaving footprints, muddy, red-tinged ones on the hardwood, and they were steaming. In his peripheral vision, something glinted. The antique mirror hanging above the fireplace warped, not in the glass but behind it, like something was swimming just beneath the surface. He'd heard of El Velo Rojo, a local myth. The red veil his grandmother used to warn them never to leave mirrors uncovered at night, never to look into them after midnight. They watched through the glass. She'd whisper in Urdu, her voice dry with warning. "They come when the prayers stop." The old women used to hang cloth over mirrors, but Ava had torn them all down before she disappeared. Said she wanted to see who was watching her in the days after she vanished. Michael found strange symbols etched in her notebook, circles within circles, drawn until the pages bled ink. He'd thought it was just her slipping, stress, anxiety, maybe schizophrenia. But now she was back. Only, she didn't blink. And her reflection wasn't there. For a brief moment, she smiled. It was small, almost human. Michael felt hope crack through his fear. Maybe she was just cold, in shock. Maybe then her mouth began to open, wide, too wide. The skin at her cheeks split slightly, revealing dark, wet muscle. And the walls, they began to breathe, in and out. Moisture leaked from the corners. A low whisper filled the hall, layered in dozens of voices. Michael stepped back, trembling. From behind Ava, the shadow stepped forward. It wore his face. Michael couldn't sleep. Ava, whatever that thing was, had retreated to the spare bedroom. The door shut behind her without a sound, but the air never stilled. It pressed against him, heavy and damp, like the inside of a crypt. The scent of copper hadn't faded. If anything, it had thickened, clinging to his tongue like rusted blood. Even the walls seemed to sweat with it, beads of moisture forming in the corners like tears. Downstairs, the clock ticked off rhythm. Tick-tick, pause, tick, tick-tick, like it was mimicking a heartbeat that wasn't his. He paced in the kitchen, barefoot on freezing tile, the chill rising through his legs. His stomach churned. He opened the fridge for comfort, maybe distraction, but slammed it shut. The eggs were broken, shells still in place but yolks black, swirling with movement. He backed away, his breath caught in his throat, and suddenly it felt to dry like he'd swallowed ash. His mind raced, looking for logic. Ava had been missing for 6 days. The police gave up after 48 hours, chalked it up to a breakdown. But he knew her. She wasn't just wandering, she was taken. The room tilted slightly. The shadows in the corners grew darker. No light touched them now. He blinked, rapidly, rubbed his eyes. "Get a grip," he muttered, gripping the countertop. But even the formica felt wrong, grainy, like skin covered in old soot. He pulled his hand away and stared at the black smear it left. Then the scratching began, faint, from upstairs, not nails on wood, more like bone. dry, rhythmic. He crept up the stairs, each step warping beneath his feet like softened wood. The hallway stretched longer than it had ever been. The family photos on the walls were all blurred now, faces smudged as though melted from memory. He reached Ava's door. Something compelled him to open it. But instead of the girl, he found a notebook on the floor, hers. The last page was written in frantic Urdu script, circled symbols inked over a hand-drawn mirror. He recognized one phrase, Nakab Utar Gaya. Hi, the veil has been lifted. Suddenly, the room grew loud. A dozen voices whispered from the vents, some chanting, others laughing. The closet door swung open. A gust of wind reeking of grave soil and bile rushed out, nearly knocking him back. He saw etched in the wood of the closet's inner frame an old protection mark his grandmother used to burn into doors, only now it was crossed out. The whispers stopped. Silence. Then Ava's voice, soft behind him. It's okay now. Michael. He turned, breath held. She stood there, smiling gently. Her face looked softer, warm, normal. The rot had faded from her skin. Her eyes almost human again. For a fleeting moment, he believed, and then her mouth twitched, just barely, too wide. The smile stretched, cracking the corners of her lips like dry paper. She whispered, he wants to wear you next. The lights blinked and the walls began to bleed in the reflection behind her. Michael saw his own hands, reaching for his throat. Michael awoke to the sound of soft dripping. At first, he thought it was rain. But outside, the sky was clear, stars scattered like broken glass across a velvet sky. The sound came from inside the house, steady, deliberate, like something leaking from a broken vein. He followed it barefoot across the hallway, the floor cold and slightly sticky beneath his feet, though no liquid was visible. As he passed the guest room, where Ava now slept or pretended to sleep, he felt a sudden shift in the air. The hallway light dimmed for a split second. He paused, held his breath. A faint whisper slid through the crack beneath her door, too low to decipher. It didn't sound like Ava. It was male, gravel thick, laced with something old and wet, like mud pressed between teeth. The dripping led him to the bathroom. He opened the door slowly. Nothing. Sink dry, tub spotless. The air, however, was heavy with a scent like rusting coins and something darker, putrid, like meat long forgotten in heat. He gagged, covering his nose. His tongue prickled with the phantom taste of bile. For a second, he thought he saw something. In the mirror, a smudge behind him, tall, thin, unmoving. But when he turned, the room was empty. That morning, he convinced himself it was exhaustion, stress, maybe mold in the walls, anything but what his instinct screamed. He even opened all the windows, let the breeze in, burned some old sandalwood, sticks his grandmother had left, whispering a verse she once taught him to keep shadows at bay. Choti Siagbi and here in Code Dara Dedi High. Even a small fire can scare the dark. For a brief time, it seemed to help. The air felt cleaner. Ava even sat at the kitchen table with him, eating toast like nothing had happened. She hummed a lullaby their mother used to sing. Her smile was tired, but it reached her eyes for a moment. Then, as Michael cleared the plates, he saw her reflection blink. Out of sync. His hand trembled. The plate shattered. Ava didn't flinch. She just turned her head slowly and asked, did it hurt? He didn't ask what she meant. He didn't want to know. Later, while organizing the attic, anything to stay distracted, he found an old trunk sealed with wax. Symbols. Inside were faded photographs of villagers, heads turned backward. Charred journals detailed a local curse. The Nakiel, a spirit that returns in borrowed skin during the Valar, 3:33 a.m. It cannot live without mimicry. It forgets itself without a face to wear. A priest once bound it using ritual fire and 7 mirrors. The mirrors were shattered. That night, the hallway stretched again, longer than the house should allow. The bleeding returned, this time from behind the wallpaper, seeping in thin crimson lines. Michael pressed his hand against the wall. It was ice cold, pulsing faintly like a dying heart. He thought he saw movement behind the wallpaper. Fingers, maybe, pressing out. Then Ava's voice, muffled, came from inside the wall. I can't stay hidden forever. Michael barely slept. The whispers returned each night, coiling around his thoughts like vines. Tightening their grip, they didn't speak in words anymore. They hissed syllables that scraped like broken teeth on stone. He tried recording them, but each playback was just static and a distant humming, like a heartbeat heard underwater. By the third night, the house itself felt alive. The floors creaked not with weight, but anticipation. Every time he turned a corner, it felt like something was just a second ahead, lurking, mocking, waiting. He couldn't breathe in the hallway anymore. The air was thick with the sour stench of old copper and something more rotten, like something long dead hidden beneath the floorboards. Driven by instinct and fear, Michael returned to the attic, compelled to revisit the trunk he'd unearthed. The charred journal called to him, its leather binding still damp as if it had been in a fire. That never finished. He flipped through the brittle pages again. One entry stood out now, smeared in ash and something darker. The Nakiel cannot die, it only forgets, until a name is spoken. Then it remembers, then it wears. That line spiraled in his head. He whispered it over and over, until his voice became a rasp and his lips bled. Among the items, he found something new tucked beneath falsewood at the bottom of the trunk. A mirror, cracked, wrapped in linen soaked in some dried reddish substance. The second he touched it, something changed. The attic tilted, light disappeared, and in its place came vision. A village, long ago, women screaming, men chanting. A figure burned inside a circle of salt and glass. It screamed, not human, its mouth too wide. Too many teeth. Children ran, blindfolded, singing in unison. Don't look, don't speak, don't follow. Michael dropped the mirror. It shattered, completely, releasing a sulfuric cloud that burned his eyes and throat. He stumbled down the attic ladder, coughing violently, wiping tears that stung like acid. The next day, he visited the last elder who remembered the old superstitions, Baba. Yunus, a man shunned by most for seeing things. He lived on the edge of the woods, surrounded by salt lines and rusted bells. Yunus didn't let him inside. You touched the mirror, the old man croaked. You called it back. What is it? Michael begged. It forgets, but you made it remember. Yunus gave him a pouch of ashes and muttered a prayer in an ancient dialect. Circle your bed. But it won't last. You fed it your fear. Now it knows your shape. Michael followed the ritual. That night, the house was still. No whispers, no bleeding walls, no flickering lights. He dared to hope. But just as sleep claimed him, his phone buzzed. One new photo, no sender. He opened it. It was him, asleep. But standing in the corner of the room was Ava. And her eyes were entirely black. Michael didn't sleep after the photo. He couldn't. He tore apart the room, searching every shadow, every crack in the drywall. But Ava was gone, or at least, she wasn't there in the way living things are. The air reeked of old blood, metallic and sweet, and every surface he touched felt unnaturally cold, like it had forgotten how to hold warmth. Even his own skin began to feel foreign, numb and waxy. Whispers started at 3 a.m. sharp, the same time Ava vanished. They slithered through the air vents, breathing her name in broken syllables. Va. They weren't voices. Not really. More like teeth grinding against glass. The mirror shards in the attic began to reassemble themselves. He saw it happen. He heard them grinding across the wooden floor, dragging themselves into place like insects crawling home. And in its fractured surface, her face appeared bloated, skin pale and bruised, eyes sunken and completely black. Then she spoke. Her voice echoed inside his skull, bypassing his ears altogether. It's still inside me. Michael fell to his knees, bile rising in his throat. The taste was sharp, coppery. He gagged and spit onto the floor. It came out red, thick. He blinked, and the wallpaper started to curl away from the walls, revealing something beneath. Etchings, symbols carved in charcoal and blood, pulsing faintly. The house wasn't just haunted, it was infected. He remembered what Baba Yunus said. It wears. It remembers. In a desperate attempt for answers, Michael returned to the trunk in the attic one final time. Behind the lining, he found a rotting cloth doll, its eyes replaced by polished stones, and a burnt sigil sewn into its chest. The moment he touched it, the attic roared alive with cold wind. Voices screamed in a language not meant for the living. Then a vision. A woman, a healer, bound and gagged, accused of using forbidden rites. Her daughter Ava watched as villagers burned her alive. The Nakiel, a spirit of vengeance, latched onto Ava's bloodline that night, feeding on grief and injustice. And every daughter born since was cursed to be its vessel. Michael's thoughts fractured. He scribbled notes endlessly on walls, the floor, even on his skin. Diagrams, symbols. He couldn't stop. He was trying to contain it, trying to save her or himself. He sealed the attic, poured salt, ash oil, recited the broken prayers Eunice had given him. The air stilled, the house sighed. For the first time in nights, he sat in silence, but then his phone vibrated again. One new voicemail. He played it. Static, a slow, rising moan, then a whisper, "You look too deep." "Michael." The lights exploded. Every window shattered inward. Blood poured from the walls like sweat from a fevered body, and in the hallway mirror, Ava stood not dead, not alive. She smiled, but her mouth was not her own. The floorboards in Ava's room groaned when Michael stepped across them, as if warning him back. Dust choked the air, but under it, there was something foul, something rotting. The coppery scent of old blood had intensified, mixed now with the sour stink of mold and bile. His stomach twisted, his tongue tingled with metallic bitterness, like he'd licked a corroded knife. He pried up the loose plank beneath her bed. It resisted, splintered, then gave way with a groan like a dying breath. Inside the narrow crawl space was a wooden box, its sides blackened with what looked like soot or dried blood. His hands shook as he pulled it free. The wood was ice cold and sticky. The latch broke off in his hands. Inside, bones, small, human, wrapped in a child's blue dress, now stiff with age and crusted brown stains. Tucked beneath the bones, he found a brittle leather-bound journal, Ava's handwriting. Only it wasn't hers. It shifted, sometimes neat and childish, other times frantic and jagged, like something else had taken control of her fingers. "I can feel it under my skin," one page read. "It talks to me through the walls. It tells me where the others are buried." Michael's vision swam. He staggered back, journal pressed to his chest, heart pounding like a war drum. The room darkened, but no light had changed. The walls wept. Thin rivulets of blood oozed from the corners of the ceiling, curling downward like crimson fingers searching for a throat. And yet for a moment it all stopped. A wind swept through the house, fresh, clean. The shadows retreated, the blood dried into the paint. He dared hope. Maybe the box was the anchor. Maybe disturbing it had broken the curse. But then he saw it in the hallway mirror. His reflection stood smiling while he stared, slack-jawed and pale. It winked at him. Michael screamed and dropped the journal. Pages scattered like birds fleeing a storm. On one of them, a sketch, a crude drawing of a woman with her eyes stitched shut, arms stretched unnaturally, mouth wide open and howling. Beneath it, a name, Hawa, the mother of winds. He remembered the tale Baba Yunus once whispered under his breath. She was cast into the void, by fire and betrayal. Her curse rides the air. She sings to her children through the cracks in old homes. The journal had other entries too, one describing a failed ritual, placing coal in every room, burning white sandalwood, sealing mirrors. A village tried it. Once, no one ever spoke of what happened after. Michael's nails bled from how tightly he gripped the wood trim of the door. He couldn't think, couldn't breathe. The air thickened like syrup. The corners of the room twisted, lengthening into something unnatural. Behind him, the sound of fingernails dragging across drywall. He turned slowly, bile rising in his throat again. Ava's bones were gone, only the dress remained, and something inside it, breathing. Michael stumbled back, eyes locked on the tattered blue dress that now pulsed as if something inside it was alive. Cold air licked his face like the breath of a crypt. The copper stench thickened, mixed with something older, burnt wood, singed. Flesh, decay steeped in centuries. The floor beneath his feet vibrated faintly, like the heartbeat of the house itself. He tried to speak, to pray, but the words curled and died in his mouth. His tongue was coated with the bitter tang of iron and something foul like bile, left to rot in a sealed jar. The walls around him had begun to breathe. He could see it now. Inhale, exhale. The wallpaper blistered and peeled, revealing a dark, pulsing surface underneath flesh-like, veined, bleeding dot. Then it came again. The whisper, low, rhythmic, in a language he didn't know but somehow understood. Analah Mut, I do not die. A voice not just in his ears, but vibrating through his bones. He dropped to his knees, clutching his head, nails digging into his scalp as the voice pressed deeper. Through blurred vision, he saw the journal twitch. Pages fluttered open as if caught in an invisible wind. There, near the back, a hidden section, pages stitched in with black thread. He hadn't seen it before. They weren't written in Ava's hand. These pages were older, parchment-like, ink brown with age. They told of a woman burned in a house just like this, 300 years ago. Accused of whispering to the wind, of stealing infants, and talking to shadows. The villagers sealed her inside and set the walls alight. But she never screamed, she only smiled. Her name, written in smudged red ink, matched the one from the earlier page, Hawa. She had made a vow, not of revenge, of rebirth, through children, through mirrors, through the hour between breaths. 3:33 a.m. Michael's breathing turned shallow. He remembered the first night Ava disappeared. 3:33. The lights had flickered. The hallway mirror had cracked. The dog had barked, then whimpered, then vanished. He hadn't made the connection. Not until now. He dragged himself to his feet, legs trembling, sweat stinging his eyes. The air grew still again. The blood on the walls dried. The mirror in the hall returned to glass. The dress lay limp, false calm. He laughed, a soft, broken sound. Maybe it was over. Maybe he had faced it, survived it. Then the power snapped off. Every light died. The house groaned. In the dark, he heard a voice behind him, clear, young, and cold. Daddy, she says you can take my place now. He turned slowly. The mirror in the hall lit with a soft red glow. His reflection was gone. In its place stood a tall, burned woman with sewn-shut eyes, smiling. The last thought that crossed his mind wasn't fear. It was a question. Whose bones were in the box? If Ava had never truly come back? Michael screamed, not from pain, but from something far deeper, a fracturing of his mind. The splintering echo of impossible terror. The reflection in the mirror didn't move like a reflection. It twitched in reverse, smiling wider, her stitched eyes stretching unnaturally beneath blistered skin. Then it stepped out, not from the glass, but through it, like stepping through smoke, solidifying into something that should not exist in any living world. The smell hit first, rot, old blood, rusted copper, and something else, ancient incense, the charred sweetness of rituals gone wrong. Michael gagged, bile rising, the back of his throat seizing with the taste of wet ashes and something metallic. He stumbled backward, the floor beneath him now soft and wet-soaked. He looked down. The carpet was gone, replaced with pulsing, spongy flesh. Every step left a footprint of blood. The house trembled. Creaking boards sang like dying children. Whispers laced the air, all around him, whispering his name. Michelle, Michelle, we see you. He covered his ears, but they slipped inside his skull like leaking gas. His vision blurred. The corners of the room melted like wax, the walls beginning to bleed again, slow at first, then gushing with thick black ichor that smelled like slaughterhouses and stagnant fear. He ran. Through the kitchen, across the hallway, each surface cold and slick, like the inside of a throat. A window burst open with a screech, letting in the night wind, but instead of relief, it brought something worse. Hundreds of birds, dead ones, slamming against the glass over and over again. Thud, 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 feathers and blood streaking the pane. He screamed again, incoherent, babbling Ava's name. In the dining room, he saw it, an old wooden idol, one he had never noticed before, carved from blackened wood, wrapped in red twine, shaped like a woman holding a child upside down. A dusty note beneath it read, in hand-scrawled Urdu, Nakala Mat Karo, Wozinda Hai. Do not imitate. She is alive. He remembered the legend now, his grandmother's whispers when he was young, of the mirror witch, of the woman who could not die because no one believed she was gone. A spirit that passed through generations, attaching itself to moments of grief, loss, and mirrors. He clutched the idol and slammed it on the ground. It cracked, but the house howled. The lights flickered again, revealing faces behind every wall. Pressed into the plaster, screaming, reaching. Then silence. Everything stilled. No whisper, no blood. Just Michael, panting, drenched in sweat and filth, on the floor of a normal house. The idol in pieces. The mirror shattered. False hope. He took one shaky breath and the walls rippled. From every corner, hands erupted. Burned, child-sized, clawed. Grabbing him. Dragging. No floor now, just black. Endless black. And the mirror woman standing over him, arms open like a mother. Before the dark swallowed him whole, he saw Ava again. Smiling. Double quotes. Daddy. She said, "We told you not to look." The floor closed in, but the doorbell rang. Someone else had arrived. The door creaked open. Footsteps echoed through the entryway, slow, cautious. A woman's voice called out, "Michael." It was his sister, Alina. She'd come after his panicked voicemails, desperate fragments of sobbing and static. The house was still to still. A putrid smell lingered in the air, wet copper and rotting lilies. The scent hit her like a slap, and she gagged. It reminded her of open graves in monsoon season, when the earth vomited secrets long buried. She stepped into the living room. The air was cold, and naturally so. She reached out, touching the wall, slick, wet. Her fingers came away smeared in something thick and black, like ink or blood. She shivered, then froze. The lights above flickered once, then again, then died. Silence fell, and then the whispers returned. Not just from the corners of the room, but from inside her, soft, rhythmic, speaking her name. "Alina, Alina, come see." She turned toward the mirror. It was whole again. In it, she saw the room behind her, empty. But in the mirror, Michael stood, pale, hollow-eyed, skin stretched tight, mouth sewn shut with strands of hair. He lifted a finger, pointing behind her. She turned. Nothing, just a cracked photo on the floor. Her, Michael, and Ava. She bent to pick it up, but the frame burned her fingers. The glass was hot, like a coal from a funeral pyre. Beneath the photo was a torn journal page, soaked with something dark. She was a midwife, hanged in 1892 for delivering stillborns and calling them blessed. The villagers burned her house. She swore she'd return through mirrors, said grief was her door. The ritual failed. They buried her mirror upside down, but someone unearthed it. The mirror groaned. Cracks spidered across its surface, each fracture leaking a slow trickle of blood. Faces began to press from within, dozens, maybe hundreds, children, women, Michael, all mouthing the same silent word, "Stay." Alina backed away. She ran. The hallway stretched, impossibly long, pulsing like a throat. Floorboards writhed beneath her steps. The taste of bile coated her tongue. The house was alive, and it was hungry. She burst into the kitchen, a second of stillness. She spotted the back door, unlocked. Hope flared. She ran for it, heart pounding. A hand shot from the counter, bony, charred, clawed. It scraped her arm, drawing blood. She screamed, turned, slashed blindly with a knife. It passed through air. Silence again. The door was wide open now. She stepped into the night. Cold wind, crickets, the stars above. She collapsed onto the grass, gasping. Safe. Or so she thought. From the upstairs window, the mirror woman watched. Not her reflection. Her. The real Alina still stood inside the house, unmoving, staring back at the false freedom outside. The thing on the grass wore her face, and it was smiling. Weeks passed. The house stood silent at the edge of the woods, its windows blind with dust, its door ajar as if still waiting. Locals avoided the place. They always had. Stories whispered through generations told of a blood midwife whose soul had been sealed in the glass by elder shamans using salt, fire, and an upside-down mirror buried deep beneath the foundation. But something had disturbed it. Inside, the air was thick with copper and decay. Each room pulsed faintly with a heartbeat not heard, but felt a low vibration in the bones. The walls bled slowly, seeping crimson down cracked wallpaper like sweat from old flesh. The smell curdled the stomach, wet earth, iron, and something too sweet to be natural. In the parlor, the mirror stood once again, now free of cracks, smooth, unbroken, innocent. From within it, Alina watched. Trapped. She screamed, but the sound made no noise. Her hands clawed at the glass, but it felt like ice and rubber all at once, yielding, then rigid, as if the glass itself mocked her desperation. Her breath fogged the mirror's inside surface. Outside, the fake Alina lived freely, perfectly, mimicking her voice, her laugh, her sorrow. A priest came one morning, called by a distant cousin who still believed in the old rites. He brought oil, ash, a pendant of bones. The locals called it the necklace of sleep, said to silence restless spirits. He lit incense. The house groaned. Something upstairs slammed hard, thrice. He knelt before the mirror and began to chant. Latin, no older. Alina's heart surged. Could he see her? Could he free her? She mouthed the word, help. For a moment, the mirror vibrated violently. The priest faltered. Shadows in the room thickened. The air turned heavy. Then came the whisper, low, feminine, timeless, your blood is not old enough. The mirror exploded in flame. The priest screamed, his skin blistering in seconds, his crucifix melting to slag. The flames danced but didn't burn the floor. They licked upward, forming the outline of a woman. Her face was ash and rot, her mouth stitched with hair, her eyes empty hollows. She walked through him, and the house swallowed him whole. Outside, the false Alina looked up from her garden. She smiled faintly, tilting her head, as if hearing a lullaby only she could understand. A child next door waved at her. She waved back. Inside the ruins, the mirror began to reform. Again, Lina, or what was left of her, sat curled within. Her thoughts no longer made sense. Time bent. Words bled into color. Hunger replaced hope. Her memories were leaking, dripping from the mirror's edge like molasses. And now, someone else had begun to speak inside her mind. That not the midwife, someone older. In the reflection behind her, another figure stirred. Taller, wrapped in chains, of bone, eyes like broken moons. It whispered, you're only the first. The mirror is the mouth, and I am still hungry.